Her eyes met mine, and everything I thought I knew about love changed. It wasn't supposed to feel like that. Just a conversation. Just a moment. But the way she looked at me, steady, unhurried, it was as if she saw right through the person I pretended to be. Everyone else always looked past me. She didn't. She looked into me. She was older, not by a few years, but by the kind that carry stories, quiet strength, and a kind of beauty that doesn't need to be noticed to exist. She had that calmness that only comes from knowing how easily things fall apart. Her hair was tied loosely, a few strands brushing her cheek. I remember how she tucked one behind her ear when I spoke, even though there was nothing to tuck. It was a small gesture, but it pulled something inside me taut. We were alone, or maybe it just felt that way. The room was dim, late afternoon light spilling in through the blinds, dust drifting in slow motion. I could hear the faint ticking of the clock, her soft breathing, the sound of her thumb running along the rim of her coffee cup. She didn't rush to fill the silence. Neither did I. "Do you always stare like that?" she asked finally, her voice low, almost teasing, but there was something else beneath it. I tried to answer, but the words caught somewhere between honesty and fear. "Only when I'm trying to remember something." She smiled, the kind of smile that barely lifts the corners of the mouth but reaches the eyes, like it knows exactly what it's doing. "Remember me?" she said. I didn't reply. Because yes, already, I was afraid I would. She leaned back, crossing one leg over the other, and I caught a glimpse of the small silver ring on her finger. Not a wedding ring, just a ring. But it made me wonder who had given it to her, and whether they still mattered. She noticed me looking. She didn't move her hand away. "You're quiet," she said softly. "That's unusual." I laughed once under my breath. "You make it hard to think." She tilted her head, considering that. "That's not something I hear often." "It should be," I said before I could stop myself. For a moment, the air between us changed, heavier, charged, like the moment before rain. She didn't look away. Neither did I. She set her cup down and stood, walking toward the window. The light fell across her shoulders, tracing the curve of her neck, the small rise of her collarbone. She looked out, but I knew she was thinking about something else, or maybe someone else. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted. "You remind me of someone," she said. "Someone good?" Her lips parted slightly, a breath of a smile. "Someone I shouldn't have cared for." That should have been the end of it, a warning maybe. But it wasn't. Because she turned then, her eyes finding mine again, and in that second everything in the room went quiet. There was no space left for reason. Just that slow, unbearable pull, the kind you don't fight, because it feels too right to resist. Her hand brushed against mine when she passed by. It could have been an accident. But she didn't move away. And just as I was about to say something, anything, there was a sudden sound from the hallway. A door opening. Footsteps. She froze. Her eyes darted toward the sound, then back to me, wide, unreadable, and trembling with something between fear and longing. Either of us spoke. But in that silence, everything had already changed. I told myself I wouldn't see her again. That what happened, or almost happened, meant nothing. But the next day, I found myself standing outside her door anyway. She opened it before I could knock twice. Her hair was tied differently this time, loose strands falling around her face. She looked tired, the kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep but from carrying too much for too long. "You're early," she said, her tone light, almost casual. I wasn't supposed to come at all. She stepped aside, letting me in. The same room, same faint scent of coffee and something floral. Maybe her perfume, maybe just her. The light was softer today, golden, forgiving. I sat down where I had yesterday, pretending not to watch her move around the kitchen. She moved differently now, slower, deliberate, like she knew I was watching and didn't mind. "Coffee? Sure. Still too sweet? I'll take it that way if you make it." She paused mid-stir, her back still to me. "You shouldn't say things like that." she said quietly. Why not? Because you're too young to mean them. There it was, that invisible wall between us. The one neither of us had built, but both kept running into. I didn't reply. I just watched as she brought the cups over, placing one in front of me. Her hand brushed mine again. This time, it wasn't an accident. The warmth lingered longer than it should have. Do people ever assume things? I asked, trying to sound casual. She smiled faintly, not meeting my eyes. All the time. That's what people do best, assume. And what do they assume about us? That we shouldn't. She said it simply, but her hand trembled slightly as she lifted her cup. A small crack in her perfect calm. I leaned forward. Do you believe that? For a moment, her eyes met mine, the same look that had ruined sleep for me last night. She held my gaze, but something in her face softened, like she wanted to say yes and no at once. I've already made enough mistakes believing in things that felt good, she said, setting her cup down. You don't recover from all of them. The silence that followed was heavier this time. I could hear my pulse, the sound of her breath, the quiet hum of something neither of us wanted to name. Then she reached for something on the shelf behind me, leaning closer than necessary. Her arm brushed my shoulder, and her breath touched the side of my neck, warm, steady, intentional. I didn't move. Sorry, she whispered. But her voice didn't sound sorry. When she pulled back, I turned to look at her, and for a moment neither of us remembered what we were supposed to be doing. There were too many things we didn't say, like how lonely she must have been, how long it had been since someone looked at her this way, or how impossible it felt to stop now. Her hand lingered on the back of the chair. Mine covered it without thinking. She didn't pull away this time. And in that quiet, still room, with her hand beneath mine and the world waiting outside, something between us finally stopped pretending. It started as a quiet afternoon, the kind that should have been ordinary. But nothing between us ever stayed ordinary for long. She was sitting beside me, reviewing something on her laptop. The light from the screen reflected in her eyes, making them look softer, almost younger. I was supposed to be focused too, but every time she leaned closer to point something out, her perfume filled the space between us, light, floral, impossible to ignore. You're distracted, she said without looking up. I smiled faintly. Maybe. Her hand brushed mine as she reached for the pen. A tiny, accidental touch, but it felt like a spark all the same. She froze for half a second, then went back to what she was doing, pretending not to notice. I pretended too. The silence stretched. Every small sound, the clicking of keys, her slow breathing, seemed louder than it should have. Then, just as her hand moved toward mine again, the front door handle rattled. We both jumped slightly. She looked at me, eyes wide, pulse visible in her neck. That's... Before she could finish, the door opened. A woman's voice called from the hall, cheerful and unaware. Hey, are you home? It was her sister. In one smooth, panicked motion, she straightened her clothes and shut the laptop. I slid back slightly in my chair, heart racing, trying to look like I belonged anywhere but here. In here! She called, her tone perfectly calm, too calm. Her sister stepped into the room, smiling. Didn't know you had company. Just helping me with something, she said easily. Work stuff. Her sister's gaze shifted between us, lingering, curious. Work stuff, huh? I tried to smile, but it felt stiff. The air in the room had changed completely, heavier, tighter. After a few moments, her sister's phone buzzed. I'll be quick, just needed to grab my jacket. She disappeared down the hall. The instant she was out of sight, we both exhaled. Her eyes met mine again, and we couldn't help it. We laughed quietly, breathlessly, the kind of laugh that comes right after fear. That was close, I whispered. Too close. Her voice was still shaking slightly. I noticed her hand resting on the table, fingers tense, knuckles pale. Without thinking, I reached out, tracing the back of her hand with my thumb. She didn't move. I should go, I said, though neither of us made the effort. Probably. But she didn't let go either. The silence returned, thick and fragile. Her lips parted, like she wanted to say something, then she stopped herself. The air between us felt electric, every breath charged with something unspoken. "Don't," she whispered finally. "Don't what?" Her eyes flicked down to my mouth before she forced herself to look away. "This," she said, voice trembling slightly. "Whatever this is." I leaned in before I even realized I was moving. Our faces were inches apart, close enough to feel the warmth of her breath, close enough for everything else to disappear. She didn't pull away this time. Her hand rose halfway, hovering near my cheek, then stopped, trembling in midair. Neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. Then her phone buzzed on the counter, loud, sharp, breaking the moment clean in half. She stepped back first. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady the rush in my chest. But as I turned to leave, her voice stopped me, soft, low, almost pleading. "Next time," she said. And somehow, I knew there would be one. The night was colder than usual, but the air between us burned. She stood by the window, her arms crossed, eyes fixed somewhere beyond the streetlights. The city outside hummed softly, but inside, it was just silence, thick and trembling. "You've been avoiding me," I said finally. Her shoulders tensed. "I've been trying to do the right thing." "The right thing?" I stepped closer. "Or the easy one?" She turned then, slow, hesitant, and I saw the fight in her eyes. She looked tired, beautiful, and cornered by her own feelings. "You don't understand," she whispered. "Then explain it." Her lips parted, but the words didn't come. Instead, she looked down, biting the inside of her lip, the way she always did when she was afraid to say something real. "I can't keep pretending," I said quietly. Her head lifted. "Pretending what?" "That I don't think about you when you're not here." The words hung there, raw and dangerous. She didn't breathe for a full second. Then she took a step toward me, small, but enough to change everything. "Don't say things like that," she murmured. "Why not?" "Because if you do, I might start believing you." Her voice broke slightly at the end, and something inside me did too. I reached out before I could stop myself, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. My hand lingered, her skin warm beneath my fingers. She didn't move. For a moment neither of us spoke. Her eyes met mine, wide, searching, terrified of what they already knew. "This isn't supposed to happen," she said softly. "Maybe it already did." She closed her eyes, shaking her head. "You don't get it. People will talk. They'll look at me and they'll think what they want." I interrupted. "But what do you think?" Her breath caught. Then, almost too quietly to hear, she said, "I think about you too." The admission hit like lightning, bright, quick, impossible to take back. The space between us vanished. I could feel the heat of her body now, the faint scent of her perfume, the rhythm of her breathing against my chest. Her fingers brushed against my arm, hesitating, then tracing down to my wrist. My pulse was loud, hers too. "This is wrong," she whispered. "Then why does it feel right?" Her hand trembled as she touched my jaw, her thumb grazing the corner of my mouth. I leaned in slowly, like gravity was pulling me toward her. Our foreheads nearly touched. Every breath mixed, every heartbeat echoed in the same rhythm. Her eyes flickered open, full of fear and wanting all at once. "Tell me to stop," I whispered. She didn't. "Please," I said again. "Tell me." But instead of words, she leaned closer, just an inch, and everything inside me unraveled. Then, suddenly, a knock at the door. She froze, eyes wide. I stepped back, pulse racing. Her lips were parted, her breath unsteady, the moment shattered but not gone. Another knock, louder this time. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "Don't move." And before I could say a word, she turned toward the door, leaving everything we almost did hanging heavy in the air between us. When she opened the door, I expected a neighbor, maybe a delivery. But the voice that followed made my chest tighten instantly. Didn't know you had company, said a man, older, confident, familiar. He stepped inside like he owned the space. Her ex-husband. The one she never talked about. She froze, her posture suddenly formal. The warmth she'd shown me only minutes ago vanished. Her voice came out controlled, careful. You shouldn't just show up here, Daniel. He looked from her to me, curious, sharp. And you are? Before I could speak, she cut in. A student. Helping with the garden. My throat went dry. A student. The word hung there, sour. Daniel smiled faintly, but his eyes lingered on the tension between us, the too quiet air, her flushed face, the distance that wasn't enough. Right, he said, drawing out the word. Well, I just came to drop off the papers you asked for. He set them down on the counter, too close to her hand. She flinched. I saw it, the way her fingers twitched, her other hand tightening into a fist. When he left, the silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was a cage. You didn't have to lie, I said finally. Her back was turned to me, shoulders stiff. I had to. You called me a student. She spun around, eyes glassy with frustration. What was I supposed to say? That you're, what? Someone I shouldn't even be this close to? The words cut sharper than she meant. She stepped closer instantly, guilt softening her tone. I didn't mean it like that. But the damage was done. I stepped back, needing air that suddenly wasn't there. Then how did you mean it? Her lips parted, then closed again. She looked afraid. He doesn't know. About how things ended between us. About why I left. Her hands trembled slightly as she ran one through her hair. I don't want you to get pulled into that mess. I wanted to believe her. But her eyes, the way they avoided mine, told me there was more. What aren't you telling me? I asked quietly. She didn't answer. Just turned away again, whispering. It's not your burden. I stepped forward until I was behind her. My voice low. Then why do I feel like it is? Her breath caught. The sound small but sharp in the still room. I told him you were helping with the garden. She murmured, almost to herself. Funny thing is, it wasn't a total lie. You have been helping me grow something I didn't expect. She turned, finally meeting my eyes again, her walls breaking, her face soft but terrified. You make me feel alive again, and that scares me more than anything. The confession hit harder than any truth she'd been hiding. I took a slow breath, the distance between us shrinking again without permission. Then maybe stop running from it. She shook her head, half a smile, half a tremor. If I stop, I won't be able to walk away. The room pulsed with something fragile, heat, fear, wanting. She brushed past me to the door, her hand grazing my chest as she passed, a brief, electric touch that said everything her words couldn't. She paused at the doorway, not looking back. Don't follow me tonight, she whispered. But even as she said it, her voice trembled, like she already knew I would. The night I went to see her again, the sky was bruised with rain, clouds heavy, the air humming with something close to warning. Her porch light was off, but I could see her silhouette in the living room window, still and waiting. Like she'd known I would come. When she opened the door, she didn't speak. Neither did I. Water slid from my jacket to the floor as I stepped inside. The only sound was the soft hum of a lamp and the rhythm of our breaths. She stood there, barefoot, wearing a soft gray sweater that slipped off one shoulder, and for a moment, I forgot what I'd come to say. You shouldn't be here, she whispered, but her voice didn't match her eyes. Her eyes wanted me to stay. Then tell me to go, I said quietly. Her lips parted, but no words came out. The silence between us said everything. I moved closer. Each step was a decision, slow, deliberate. She didn't move back. When I reached her, we were barely an inch apart. I could feel the heat of her skin, smell the faint trace of rain and jasmine in her hair. Her hand lifted, hesitant at first, then rested on my chest. My pulse answered under her palm. You make this harder than it should be, she said softly. Maybe it's not supposed to be easy. Her laugh was quiet, trembling. "You're too young to say things like that." "Maybe," I said, "but I mean them anyway." For a long second, she just looked at me, really looked. Like she was memorizing something she didn't want to lose. Then, in a breath that sounded more like surrender than choice, she whispered, "I can't keep pretending this isn't real." The words hit me like lightning, sudden, alive. My hand found her face, my thumb brushing the corner of her mouth. She closed her eyes, leaning into the touch, exhaling like she'd been holding it for years. "We'll ruin everything," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "Maybe," I said, my forehead almost touching hers. "But maybe we'll find something worth it." She didn't move, not away, not closer. Her fingers curled into the fabric of my shirt, holding on like she was afraid I'd disappear if she let go. The space between us disappeared. For a heartbeat, the world outside didn't exist, just rain on glass, her breath against mine, the impossible weight of wanting someone you're not supposed to. Then she pulled back slightly, eyes shining, whispering, "If we do this, there's no going back." I know. And for the first time, I saw it, not the careful, guarded woman she tried to be, but the one underneath. The one who wanted to feel, even if it meant falling. Her hand trembled as it slid down my arm, fingers finding mine. She squeezed once, firm, real. That was her answer. We didn't need words after that. Just the quiet truth between us, that neither of us would walk away this time. The morning after the storm, everything felt quieter, softer somehow. The rain had stopped, but its memory lingered in the air, in the way the world smelled clean, new, and a little uncertain. She was sitting by the window, knees pulled close, her sweater hanging loose on one shoulder again. The light touched her hair like it was trying to memorize her too, gentle, reverent. I stood there for a while, watching her. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to fill the silence. When she finally looked at me, there was no hiding left in her eyes. No denial. Just a tired, quiet truth. "You're really staying?" she said. It wasn't a question, but there was a fragile hope behind it. "I am," I said. She smiled faintly, that kind of half-smile people make when they're still afraid to believe something good could be real. "There's a world outside this house," she whispered. "People who'll talk. Who'll think things." "I know," I said, walking closer. "Let them." She laughed softly, a laugh that sounded almost like relief. "You make it sound simple." "Maybe it is." She shook her head, but didn't stop me when I reached out and took her hand. Her fingers tightened around mine automatically, like they'd been waiting for that touch. For a long time, we just sat there together, saying nothing, letting the quiet say everything. The light outside shifted, spilling across the floor, across her bare feet, across us. "I don't know what this is supposed to be," she admitted quietly. "Maybe we don't have to name it yet," I said. "Maybe it's enough that we're both here." She exhaled, a slow, trembling breath that sounded like surrender. Then she leaned her head against my shoulder. I could feel the warmth of her skin through the fabric, the slow, steady rhythm of her breathing. "I spent so long trying not to feel anything," she murmured. "Now you show up and ruin all my rules." "Then let them stay broken," I said softly. She smiled against my shoulder, her voice barely a whisper. "You don't know what you're signing up for." I turned my head slightly, brushing my lips against her hair. "I think I do." And for the first time, she didn't pull away. We stayed like that, no dramatic words, no promises, just two people breathing in sync while the world went on outside. It didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the first moment of peace either of us had known in a long time. When she finally lifted her head, her eyes met mine, steady, warm, real. "Whatever happens," she said, "thank you for not leaving." "I couldn't," I said simply. "Not after everything." Her hand found mine again, fingers intertwining, not tentative this time, but certain. The storm had passed, but something deeper remained, not wild, not forbidden, just right. And in that quiet morning light, it was enough. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?